remember that everything is true in the spiritual dimension. There's a cheap copy for it in the world of the ego. You know, love is sexual athletics. Forgiveness is I'm going to let you off the hook. And atonement is I'm going to atone for my sins. I'm going to make up for, I'm going to suffer for my sins. Where the objective of removing the barriers to the awareness of love's presence is to go back to the space where there's a realization that there's only one of us, you know, and that's an insight that even Einstein, from the point of view of a physicist, says, you know, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. And to me, forgiveness is simply the removal of the optical delusion and all the lies that come from it, and getting back to the truth of it and allowing it in. And my offering when you say the terrible things you've done would be, I bet you've done nothing more dramatic than your power person did to you. And you've passed it on. And now you're courageously going headlong into your work to clean it up. And that's 10 times more powerful than hang out with the terrible things I've done in my book.
And it's been great. Yeah. Michael, you said something to me a couple of weeks ago that has helped so much. I was moaning about how I was afraid that our Michael might feel things that I feel that are less than love toward him. No matter how I act, I'm good at holding love present and acting from love, and I'm pretty good about that, but I'm afraid that he can feel something stirring that's other than love, because there often is. He's my teacher,
right.
And I'm working on this all the time. But you said maybe it is good enough, and I just thought I felt
absolutely.
That was just really helpful.
Yeah, and when that comes up, that's a wonderful space for honest communication. And if you do responsibility communication, you remember where you use words to describe your reality, owning that it belongs to you, rather than the world that does projection communication, where it uses words to prove that the reality in my mind belongs to somebody else. So, you know, opening the kind of relationship with him where you can be honest with what's coming up for you. And in the context of, I'm here to support you, and, you know, here's where we're going, and this is what's coming up for me. And, you know, having those hard conversations can be a really challenging thing, because people have, you know, matching bags of garbage. But if we can have the honest conversations about what's really going on, not that I have to act on it, not that it's the end all and the be all, but this is a reality coming up in me when I can own it, as that line from the play Mass Appeal. Now that the truth has been told, I can show up as the love that I am, rather than as the person who has to tell this story and cover something up, which blocks the presence of active love.
Yeah.
So joining you in the safety of doing that.
It's been quite a challenge, but a rather sweet thing happened today. Michael has no car, and so he has to walk to the grocery store. And of course, when he walks, he can't bring very much, because he brings his dog in a stroller and he takes a backpack. So whatever he gets is not much. And he has food stamps. And he said, what I really want to do is, I have all this money on my food stamp thing, and I have to use it up at the end of the month, which was yesterday. And he said,
right.
I want to buy you some food for the refugee center with the rest of the money. And
that's sweet.
Yeah, it is sweet, because he has, you know, I said, Michael, you're trying to save every penny. You know, I could reimburse you. You could buy those things and give them to me, and I could reimburse you, and you'd have the money to go toward your car. And there was some resistance there, but I was thinking maybe I'm not fully accepting his gift either. You know, I wasn't really
allowing
allowing
space
him.
for him to be generous.
Yeah. So anyway, it's sort of ongoing lessons. Yeah.
You know, there's an old saying, I forget who came forward with it, was like, the hole you give through is the hole you receive through. And so allowing someone to expand that hole they give through can be a gift, because it opens the space for them to receive too.
Boy, is that important. Well, we drove to the store today for him to use up the rest of his money, and he got a whole cart full of stuff. We got through the cash register place, and he put the card in, and he couldn't use it. And so and he was looking at me saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry," as if he's taking something away from me, saying, "I'm so sorry that this happened." And I said, "You know, this is so complicated, this stamp thing, and I don't know how it works." But the cashier said, "You know, this has happened to several people today. I think the whole operation is down. I don't think it's your card." But anyway, he felt terrible because he had to put everything back, and he couldn't give me the sugar and the Primo and all this awful stuff, Michael, that he wanted to get for the refugees. And they do use it. So anyway, it's been a very interesting thing. But anyway, I don't need to talk about all that. It's just ongoing learning on all sides.
Equanimity. The ability to be in balance with whatever's happening is, I think, another expression of being.
Yeah. It's a goal. It's an ideal, I should say.
And I have not sent you the article that I'm working on. It has become infinitely more complex and detailed than it started out to be. And I think that it's going to end up being a book, and then I'm going to shorten the and end up shortening the article out of it. But at this point, it's been growing and expanding to several different, taking that single thought of Job, that which I feared most has come upon me, that which I dreaded has happened to me, and getting people to understand that those emotional amplifiers are what produce effects in the world that we call attack, pain, and suffering. That's a monumental task to get people to connect. My fear actually means that person comes and does that to me. So anyway, it's been an ongoing, expanding operation, and I will send it to you when I get it to a point where it's more logical. Right now, it's disjointed with about 5 or 6 different key ideas that are, at least at this point, I'm seeing as opening the path for people to be able to grasp that.
That's the creative process. I'm happy to wait. That's great.
Cool. We'll keep you posted. One of the other thoughts for you today?
No, you go ahead. Dr. Tim and I talked the whole hour.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you came to a wonderful conclusion.
Really
and to cancel your need to ever atone for a sin again, and just remove that thing that separates us so we can get back to being who we are as one.
Wonderful. Yeah.
That's the truth of us all. All right, we appreciate you, young lady. Blessings.
Thanks. Thanks, you too, Michael.
All righty.
Thanks.
All righty, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, Miss Jeanie?
Well, Doug is
what be happening on your end?
Yeah, we were going to do the emotional release with him, so I've just turned his microphone on. Welcome, Doug.
Let's go for it.
Good morning. Yep.
Hey there, sir. How are you?
Dan, good. All right. I'm fine.
How's
pretty good?
Well, tell me about that elevation in voice tone and what that means. What's happening?
Well, I don't know. I'm making a nice smoothie, and I enjoyed the first hour, and I guess I'm just having a fairly decent mood. I feel like I have not. I mean, I've listened to several times the last 20 minutes, the hour that we talked, and it's so packed full of good yummies, and I feel like I haven't yet even begun to, I've begun a little bit, but there's a whole lot. And I feel like that there are two sides to my attachment. One is more positive, and one is out of the non-being mind. It's like I do love her, I do care about her, I would like to have something good if that's what's right. But all of the negative.
So you're ready for me to crash that one for you?
The positive
you willing
side.
To have me crash that for you? You will have me crash that positive side?
All right, I'm willing to have you do that.
Or should we just let that one go for now?
It's necessary. At this point, it's like I'm always willing to hear a thought. I don't know how it would land at the moment, because I feel like that's what at least that's what I feel, is like there's a positive appreciation that's born, and then there's all of the negative content that we were talking about, the essence of what we discussed. My fears of the world, my dependence, my needs, my guilt, all of those things drive that side. So I'm willing to have you, that's what I would certainly want to hear about it on that.
So my offering would be, you're kidding yourself. You've never loved her.
Oh,
and she's never loved you. And she's never going to love you, and you're never going to love her. And nobody has ever, loved you, and nobody ever will. And I have never loved anyone, and I never will. And God doesn't love either of us or any of us. That's all a fraud. That's all a lie.
Right.
We've been taught. Remember, the mind is a goal accomplishing device. But the goal has got to be achievable in order to ever reach any real satisfaction. And, the common theme of the world, I forget the name of the band that came out with it many years ago, and it's the common theme of the whole world, because everybody's pursuing a love relationship where they're loved and somebody else loves them. And the band came out with a song that was, I can't get no satisfaction. Because when we're chasing something false, you can't ever achieve it. It can't be done. Now, you can do the work of forgiveness so that you can show up in that relationship as who you are, as love and compassion and caring. But it's not a verb. It's not something you can do to somebody else. But as long as the mind thinks that's the goal, then the mind's going to keep hallucinating all kinds of realities, and any unresolved pain in the mind is going to become attached to the lack of achievement of that goal. The reality stimulated by that goal. And it's all based in a falsehood. So when you start to move in the direction of, so what I really want to do, as opposed to pretend that I love this person, make up this fantasy about loving this person, is I want to get to the point where I reconnect to my original nature as love, and I show up as that. Now, I am love, and from that space of love comes caring, compassion, all the things that people would say, I love you. But that being a falsehood, then their forms of love become, the rage because you didn't do this, and the anger because you didn't, the sadness because, and the separation because, and the leaving and the coming back, and they go, all of that stuff is all based in a falsehood. And ultimately, as long as the mind has been taught a lie, the mind can't do anything else but live out of that lie. And the end result of every lie in the mind is failure and loss. it's chasing a fantasy. It's chasing something that can't be done. So my offering would be to do the work that it takes to remove everything in yourself that has anything to do with what someone might call attributes other than love. Remove those so that you just show up. And then you are love in the relationship.
That sounds great. In that state, there's no. Is there any kind of attachment? I mean, what?
The psychology often talks about attachment and attachment disorder. To me, attachment is a disorder. Connection is, to me, what it's about is to recognize I am connected to everyone, and are there people closer to me that I behave in a more intense manner from that space of love toward? Yes, of course. But to me, it's connection. If it's attachment, we're in difficulty.
Sounds good. And
there was something else. To me, attachment comes down to codependence. Oh, I'm attached to you doing this, and if you don't do this, then I'm going to be that. That, to me, would be attachment.
Okay. It has expectations of the other person.
Probably goals. Yeah. If we're attached, then you have to behave this way, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, and I have to do this, and I have to do that. As opposed to there's connection in being and in doing our work together. There's hostility and fear that perhaps each of us brings to the relationship that we have to work out and work through. And so let's join in doing that. But it comes from our connectedness as opposed to our attachment.
And there was one other thing you said that I'll go back and listen to and catch, but that sort of felt very important. But you said something about if you, I don't know if I can create it in a way to get you to say it again. I'll try once, and if not, we'll move on. Something like,
okay.
If you're going after something that your
voice faded out there for a second. Say it again.
If you're going after something that you can't get, or achieve, you are bound to fail, or something like that. And you were building upon the idea that. Were you building on the idea that, in saying that if you think you love somebody, that's a false goal you can never achieve, so you're always going to fail at, quote, loving someone? Is that what that was about?
Well, that's a little bit of a turned around idea of what I was expressing. What I was saying is that if I hold that it's possible for me to love you, then I tell my mind that I'm supposed to love you. So here we are rolling along in a relationship, and I'm supposed to be loving you, and one day, because we have one of the aspects of our attraction is our matching bags of garbage, and you happen to have just the right energy to resonate my rage. So you do the behavior that resonates my rage, and now all of a sudden I've failed in my goal to quote-unquote love you. And now that I've failed in my goal to love you, then I'm going to tend to move into some sort of self-condemnation, or if I get into blame, it's going to be your fault or what have you. And it always leaves, if I give my mind something it can't achieve, it's always going to fail because that goal isn't achievable. It's achievable to stand as the space of love. And my commitment is, I promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth, to be true to you, to treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect. And in that understanding, there's room for, if you resonate my rage, I say, I'm here to treat you lovingly, Jay, and right now my rage is up, and I snapped at you, and I apologize for that, but I haven't failed at my commitment. But if I'm supposed to, come hell or high water in all circumstances, quote unquote, love you, or you're supposed to love me, which in most people's book the word really means approve of, i.e., if as long as you're doing what I want you to do, then I approve of you. That's what most people call loving somebody. And it leads to mass insanity. So joining in a relationship where the goal is, I'm here to experience who I am as love and to support you in doing the same, and to make a safe space for anything in me that's unlike that. Maybe it's 10, 100 generations old, or anything in you that might be yesterday or 10 or 100 generations old, to create the space that's safe enough for that to come up, to be processed. And when you stand as a space of love and have practiced it and hold to that commitment, and I stand as a space of love and have practiced and I hold to that commitment, and up comes our rage, then we now empower each other to heal our rage, or our sadness, or our grief, or our loss, or our, melancholy, or, whatever it is. Life is hopeless, it's helpless, it's over, it'll never happen, I'll always, whatever the conclusions are, it gets safe enough for those things to come up. And in the space of active love, they heal.
And we best do that for each other by holding love present as that comes up. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we don't fail by virtue of the fact that included in the commitment is what you do when something other than what you do when rage or things come up. You have a provision. You're doing that, therefore you're still not failing. You're not necessarily approving everything with them. Go ahead.
Yeah, the first part of the commitment is, I promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth, treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect. And the last paragraph, if anything unlike that love comes up, I'll hold this in my heart and listen as we each learn to speak, experience, and be responsible for our own realities. I'm here for you and with you, keeping communication open and keeping love conscious, active, and present as we heal, celebrate life, and grow together. So there's a provision for insanity. And if there's no, at this stage in our development as non-humans moving to human life, there's got to be a provision for the space for the most bizarre forms of insanity that have ever existed on the planet to come up and be healed.
And what to do in that. So
yes.
I don't know, it makes me want to laugh to say there's a provision for insanity, but that's exactly what it is. And then
that's exactly what it is.
It's a provision for insanity and what to do when it comes up.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm here for you and with you, keeping communication open. And then, of course, we've got a whole raft of tools, forgiveness, and all the rest. So it allows a space for that to come up, and hopefully each time you go to the depth of, or I go to the depths of my insane mind with your support and assistance and vice versa, I burn off a little more of my own insanity. So where yesterday it maybe hit a level 10 when you gave me the look, today it only hits a level 9. And then next month when it comes up again, it only hits a level 8 and gets down to the point where it hits a level 4, and now all of a sudden I don't have to express it as my insanity. I can just go, whoa, I noticed there's some deep and extreme insane stuff that, last week I was puking all over you, but now I'm realizing here it is in my mind, and I've stopped making my brain's image of you out of it. I've collapsed that process often enough to realize and to build the brain cells for, this is something in me that I need to deal with. And what I really need is some support and assistance. Would you hold the space? So now we've got a platform and a blueprint for healing through our relationships. because it's in those relationships that those things are going to come up. And you go back into the scriptures and talk about nothing will remain hidden. Everything will be made known in the light of day. So if, 15 generations ago, the family broke and was smashed to smithereens, and everybody went in different directions, and the rest of the experience of that life for that ancestor was life is over. If that's in the genes, then sooner or later that energetic pattern is going to work its way to the surface of the mind and drive behavior and create exactly the circumstance where that's going to come up full-blown. If I'm conscious enough, rather than being run by the energetic pattern that's moving in my mind, I'll be able to step back from it, become the observer of it, the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions, and recognize, ooh, this is something happening in my mind. And rather than building my brain's picture of you out of it, projecting that pain content in my brain's image of you, and really believing because I see it, I think I see it with my eyes out there that I'm seeing you do that, I recognize, oh, this is content of my mind that I've been projecting, and now I'm going to collapse that projection. And that one, and that one. And each time I collapse a projection, instead of being in a relationship with the projected image of my pain, i.e. it shows up in my mind's image of you, and therefore I know it's yours, I get to the point where I get back to a direct relationship with my pain. It isn't put into my brain's image of you anymore. I finally have the strength and the ability and the practice to come face to face with it and hold to active love as I do. And that's what dissolves it. That story in the scriptures where the woman has the 12-year issue of blood, and she knows that if she can just touch the hem of Yeshua's garment, and it wasn't about her running over and touching the piece of cloth, it was that she was stepping into a space of such vitality that she could literally, really, truly face whatever that underlying energy was, energy dynamic. Who knows how many generations back it was, or what happened in childhood, or what happened in utero, that she's able to scoop that energy out of her field because she has the added strength of that support of this man, Yeshua. And boom, something that's been going on, really serious infirmity that's been going on for 12 years is instantly gone.
Yeah, that was an awesome description of a lot, and I want to acknowledge that, and then I want to say that you and Susan were talking about the atonement with this story, and then tie that into some discussion going on in a question first hour about, are we doing that? Or is Ruka doing that? Is the super processor doing that? Are we just surrender? Like when the language, for the sake of language, we say, I'm recognizing this, I'm doing this, I'm processing this, and therefore I'm becoming whole. And, all of these things tie together. Everything I just said, like me, is like part of the mystery of unraveling exactly what is it that really happens. Are we not saying, I see that I'm in error, I surrender to a higher power, which is a Ruka, which then sets me in order because I surrender to it? Or am I setting myself in order as I recognize it?
My offering would be that we're working toward doing all of the above.
All of the above.
This woman knows that she needs an extra layer of vitality to process a depth that she can't do on her own. And
so
Yeshua,
she's getting something from him. That story has always been an interesting point, because he then tells her, your faith.
Right.
Okay.
So he isn't going to claim, look what I did to you or for you. He's telling her what really happened. Yes, I offered the support you needed. You were at a level 6 vitality. You had a level 8 issue. You couldn't get up to that level 8 to process it out on your own, but you were ready and willing. You remember that story, in the descriptor it says it was a throng of people. I don't know how many people there are in a throng. Is it 250, 100, 5,000? I don't know. But she's the only one who made the shift. So he lent, my take would be he lent his vitality to her to boost her to the level 9 where she could process through whatever that what appeared to be a physical thing that blocked her proper physical function, that she was able to process through that. And then when they want to lay it on him, he says, no, in essence, all I did was add a little vitality. It was her that did the work. It was her willingness. She's the one who stepped up to the plate. Notice there were 5,000 other people here. None of them got it. I put the same energy out in the whole group. Why did she move? Because she was ready to do her work. So to me, it would be both.
Okay, so while we're in this territory, I just want to split these hairs a little more and dive a little deeper into
Go for it.
If we.
It's good
because
stuff.
it's like, okay, so I know that we've often said that, and I've heard you say that when we have 1,000, 10,000, a million issues and we have a 9-bit mind, we're not going to personally take through our mind what's necessary to process out all of that non-being content, but the super process does. But our willingness is necessary, and so it's like in that moment, he went to there with faith, touched his garment, ready, and that was her contribution. He added vitality, and then and then love or ruka or the power of the divine grace would actually, with that vitality and her willingness, heal her. She didn't heal herself, or did she? Her role was getting herself in position to be healed. It's just like I'm just trying. Or it's both. You're saying it's sort of both. I'm trying to suss that out.
My take is that it's both. That if I can't be active, present love to burn off whatever it is in me that needs to be transmuted or burned off, then I can receive that support from another, and I can stand in willingness. And remember that when the scriptures talk about God sending out his spirit, it doesn't say that. It says the Creator sent out its breath. And so when I'm willing to breathe into that space, then that's when those things open. So to me, it would be all of the above that's happening there.
Okay.
And as I strengthen, they talk in the scriptures about strength to strength. No, we're not going to do it all in one fell swoop. It's a process. Many people want to storm the gates of the kingdom. You can't storm the gates. It's strength to strength. You do your work, you gather another piece of strength, another ability, another step in being able to step back and observe yourself, another little piece of, yes, I can stand stronger as love. I can stay awake in my mind longer when my pain and trauma surfaces. So to me, it would be what you're doing is all of the above. And in that particular case, all three factors, we might break it up. Someone who's, let's say, in the early stages of doing their work, and they're in willingness, let's say it's that woman who has the 12-year issue of blood, Yeshua might be offering 4 points of support to vitalize her. And if it were someone more advanced, maybe she's at a 7 and she's got to get to an 8. So Yeshua might be offering 1 point of. And then the willingness stands in part in being able to breathe through it, because it's the breath that opens and creates that transmutation. So we're really trying to use symbols of symbols, words, to describe a process that's way beyond what our words can even start to really approximate. There is a really nice clue in the Course in Miracles where it describes how forgiveness is done. And in that particular lesson, I think it's lesson 308, paragraph 7, it says, let go all the things you think you want, your trifling treasures put away, and leave a clean and open space within your mind. So your 9-bit mind, if you don't fill the altar, if you don't fill it with all the preconceived and all the garbage of the generations, yeah, you can process massive amounts of data through that 9-bit mind. But you can't do it until you've collapsed what's occupying. You got to clear the altar. And you do that by canceling the goal that collapses the perception that fills the altar, being the 9-bit mind. Not ALTAR as in the church, but ALTER as in change the content of the generational patterns within us.
So altar happens at the altar of a clear mind.
Yes.
Without the mind.
Exactly. And so you collapse the whole projection, you collapse perception, and you've now got this clean and open space where active present love can come and burn off. You know, one of the objectives of the still point breathing process is to get to the point where that still point happens, where instead of being in resistance, you know, in Aramaic, the word Satan means the resistor, one who misleads. And my take is most people are trapped in Satan in this world, in this culture, most of the time, because they're always being misled by their own minds, and it's always somebody else's fault. And when we are ready to give that up and leave a clean and open space, then, and in Aramaic, the word Satan means the resistor. When I let go of that resistance, I move into a super processor space. And that happens, at least for me, most reliably with the breath. You know, if you look at, you've been in workshops where I've done the energy field work before, and over the, you know, the decades of the work that I've done and all the different workshops and studies that I've done, what I, very early in my career, I noticed that still point was super process time. When that still point spontaneously happened, then, and I could be with somebody to unpack what happened, there was so much that went on. It was like, you know, in some cases, in a matter of 30 seconds, people process through years of old trauma. And my take is because when the breath is moving adequately, Ruka is moving adequately, we're in a space of a super processor. There's no resistance to what needs to move. We're literally out of Satan's grip, out of the resistor. And just massive underlying energetic patterns can be undone in a fraction of a second in a still point. That's where the breath comes in. That's where Ruka comes in.
Okay, and love is always required for forgiveness to occur. So is that correct? It's like ultimately.
Say it again. Your voice glitched there.
Love is always required to be present for
That's
forgiveness to happen.
Yeah. To me, that is that's what burns off the energy, the simple exposure to active present love. It's like the sun creates a transmutation in the leaf of a tree, and chlorophyll converts sunlight energy into sugar and feeds the tree. It's the active presence of love that creates that transmutation that we see happening with the sun and the tree leaf. And there's an actual transmutation of energy. So anything of the false mind, anything that is not true, no matter how old the generational pattern is, that is allowed to surface directly rather than be projected, is allowed to surface directly in the presence of love without being projected into our brain's image of someone else, then that stuff automatically starts to burn off.
That's an important key idea, that it's surfacing directly, not focused through somebody else. And ultimately, then, the mind can't heal itself by itself without love, no matter what it does.
Well, the mind can't. The mind, you know, the secrets, the power is not in the mind. It's actually the mind that hides those things.
Okay. The mind can't do it by itself, no matter what.
No.
And let love is present. Set itself up for that.
No. Okay. I mean, you think about, you know, if you take the Harvard research, it says 9 bits of data in the time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, and it's been estimated that there are perhaps 20 trillion bits of data in the world. I mean, what can you do in a 20 trillion bit world with a 9-bit mind? Not much.
The only thing you can
being shows up.
Okay.
And as long as we're in the I'm in this space because that happened. I'm only experiencing it because she did this or he did that or they did that. As long as I'm in that space, then with my goal to have someone else to blame, I take the very thing that I need to process and I literally make my brain's picture. What I think I'm seeing out there, I make up with what's happening inside of me. So now I'm still in relationship. People who are in blame are still in relationship with their pain, but their relationship is indirect. They're experiencing all the pain, but they can tell you the story about how it's everybody else's fault and everybody else needs to change. That's because they're in an indirect relationship.
In that condition,
the reason why a lot of people won't do the forgiveness process is because they're coming into direct relationship with it, and they have to feel it directly.
And they don't want to. But as long as they're in indirect, relationship, they are the resistor to the healing they need. That condition is
precisely. As long as I believe it's something or somebody outside of me.
Having goals be so important that they fill the mind with this non-being content. In other words, that becomes a resistor too. It's like when you quoted that passage from the Course in Miracles, putting aside everything, that means setting everything else aside, all the goals, everything else you've got, in order to be coming into the clear and open space where love can make the change and you can have direct relationships to it, right?
Right. And Yeshua would say, seek ye first the kingdom. Seek the healed state. Seek the state where you experience who you are as the active presence of love before you go trying to create something out of your unconscious drama and trauma, out of your generational patterns, because all you'll do is replicate the generational patterns. Again, go back to Scripture. Look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. The sins of the fathers, the energetic patterns that are off base, are carried on for generation after generation. And it becomes, they're proving in the laboratory, this is the whole study of epigenetics. They're showing that certain diseases, certain chemical exposures, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations ago, produce definable diseases in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th generation.
I'm very grateful for all this.
As long as I'm working out of the perceptual apparatus, thinking that my perception is showing me something that's true about how something outside of me is the problem, I'm in denial, and I dissociate from what I need to heal. Thus the power of canceling a goal. Collapsing perception, the projection that perception shows me, and then by withdrawing the need to take this pain content in me into my brain's image of someone else or someone else's behavior or some circumstance, I now come into direct relationship with that circumstance. If love is present and breath is present when I'm doing that, whatever that is going to heal instantly. No matter how big, no matter how traumatic, no matter how old.
I don't want to use up all our time because I want to leave time for the exercise that we came into this for.
We got time. It only take about 3 or 4 minutes.
All right. With all of this set up, I want to address the atonement because you and Susan were talking about that. And it's like I long ago gave up the idea that somebody had to pay for my sins by suffering some kind of agony. But there was a purpose for him being there, and I sort of thought it was him being on the cross, to be specific, that I've kind of come to, is so that he could demonstrate that even death can be overcome in the resurrection. But I think that in the context of the conversation, this is kind of the area where I'm just trying to grow. It's like I value for people when they, like I sometimes go to a traditional church occasionally and this and that, and where people are like, okay, Jesus is saving me or he's helping me. It's like, it seems to me like there's a place for people at a certain level of understanding to, and even he was creating an opportunity for them to understand by turning to only by turning to a higher power, by turning to grace, by turning to His assistance to raise all of the things that we talked about with that there's some dynamic there that's alive, and there's a space for the process. And I'd just like to hear about that a little bit. Does that, do I need being clear enough, or?
My take, to me, in the culture, in churchianity, there's this thing about Jesus saves, like He's going to fix it all for me. And if you go back and listen to Him, He tells people there's a work to be done, and they say, too hard a saying, I don't want to do that. And so they go out and make this story up about He's going to do it for them. For me, what I find true for me personally is my deep, deep, deep appreciation for the fact that He understood it, brought forward the tools and the mechanism and the understanding for how to heal, and handed it off to us. So in that sense, He does save us. I mean, I don't know anybody else that has the brain cells for, where do you find this forgiveness process? You don't. And to me, that's the key and the core piece of the puzzle. And so in the sense that He said, okay, here's how it's done, and we build the brain cells to know what He was talking about originally in Aramaic, rather than the Greek idea of He's taught us to let other people off the hook, then he brought the tools to earth for each and every person to do whatever work they need to do. So in that sense, it's very accurate to say He saved us. He saved humanity. Because I don't know anywhere else on the planet you'll find that tool. And without that tool, people don't escape from their insanity. They just don't.
Okay, and so can we add to that as in with the woman with the issue of blood, He can, when we ask, as she did, add reality to our situation so that we could not?
Say that again. Your voice faded out again.
Okay, so as in with the woman with the issue of the blood who came to Him, and then in our previous discussion, you said He added some of His vitality to her so that she could achieve that healing. Can that not be a part of the dynamic for people today as well, that they ask Him for help?
Absolutely.
Vitality so
He
they
said,
can
I'm
heal?
here. Yeah, He said, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here to hold the space for you. Yes. What I see is when He stands in the Garden of Gethsemane and they talk about He takes on the sins of the world, isn't like, oh, He's going to take on this burden and this load for everybody. He's saying, I'm going to open the energy window for all of this unresolved pain and suffering to be transmuted. I'm going to invite it to pass through me to the presence of love fully and heal for all of humanity. And of course, you can't take away from somebody something that they're not willing to give up. So a lot of humanity is still holding on to it.
Okay, so humanity has to surrender it, and do all these things that we talked about. I would like you to just expand on that statement. That felt really interesting. Like, okay, I want to understand that more. He said, I'm not. He said the words he used, the effect of He's going to open the space for all this energy to move through. Can you expand on that?
My take would be He's going to be a conduit. I'll share, and we've got about 10 minutes, but I'll share that about a year ago, I was doing a still point session, and I was breathing, I'm laying down, my eyes are closed, and I'm breathing away, and all of a sudden I'm instructed to look downward. My eyes are closed, so I literally, physically turn my eyeballs down, and I can see a vast field of darkness that is bigger than I could possibly describe. If I were going to say it's a field, I couldn't tell how many, tens of thousands of miles wide and deep it was. And in that field were small lights, an uncountable, unfathomable number of lights. Like, I can't count that high. I couldn't describe. It was just massive. And I asked, well, what is it that I'm looking at? And what I was told was, these are my generations and the suffering that they're carrying. And then I was told that they were asking me if I would assist in processing that darkness for them and with them, to which I replied yes. And, you know, normally when I do a still point session, my phone is off. This particular day, I hadn't turned my phone off. And when I was asked that question, I answered it. You've done still point breathing. It's not something you normally do, but I answered it out loud. I spoke it out loud. Yes, I am willing to assist, to take on, to be a conduit, to be a vessel to process all of this darkness. And literally, as I spoke those words, my phone rang. And I picked up my phone, and, you know, Michael J. is 42 at that point. And so it's my son on the phone. And we've never talked about our family system. You know, he's had met my mother a few times. When he was very young, he met my sisters and brother. And that's about all the connection he's had with my side of the family, because we're down here and, you know, my family's up in Canada. And so he's on the phone and he says, "Hey, Dad, I'm on Ancestry.com and I need some information about our ancestors." So, you know, for me, that was verification that what had just happened to me, for me, was accurate. And taking on, choosing to be a vehicle of light to process the darkness of my generations. That, to me, was like how I came to understand what Yeshua was doing in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Right. Awesome. Okay, great. I was going to say,
each one of us, and I think each one of us can choose to stand beside him and do that.
Okay, so that was kind of a micro example of what he was doing for all of humanity in the garden, and we can participate. That's very helpful stuff, and in the context of all that, do this exercise that we.
So let's go move into letting go of attachment. So if there's anybody in the audience that you've got someone that, you know, can push your buttons, pull your chain, whatever way you call it, bring your stuff up. Somebody can make you mad or make you sad, or, you know, all the language of the world that says it. One of the reasons for that is because we're emotionally attached. Those energetic patterns are attached to that individual. And so this is an exercise for breaking those emotional attachments, not breaking relationship, not leaving relationship, but rather letting go of the emotional responses that keep us in unconsciousness. So it's a really simple process. I've seen it do I've experienced it myself and seen it do some extremely profound things. You know, spouses, former spouses, and attachment to it that just keeps the energetic patterns going. And when people have done this, it's like the pattern's just gone. It's just finished. So I'm going to just direct you through it, and I'm just going to ask you to just follow my directions, and when we do it, it's complete. It's only about 2 minutes. So I'm going to ask you to just level your breath out, connect with your breath, and imagine that I have 2 pencils of light. And I want to use those pencils of light to direct you to the seat of the unconscious where these attachments can be broken. So I'm just going to ask you to sit in a still place, close your eyes, and imagine that I'm there with you, and I'm going to place one of the lights right down to the very top of the crown chakra, the top of your head, the center of the head. So imagine I'm inserting that pencil of light into your head from the top, and then the second light I'm inserting right in through what people would call the third eye, or the forehead, the center of the forehead. And imagine that where those 2 pencil tips of light meet, those two beams of light meet, is where you want to center your awareness. You want to focus there. Now, if that seems a little strange to you, take your left index finger and touch the back of your right hand. And focus your awareness on the back of your right hand. Take your left index finger and tap your elbow. And focus your awareness on your elbow. Take the same index finger and tap your right shoulder. And focus on your right shoulder. So notice you can send your awareness to any one of those places. So now we want you to take your awareness to the place where the two pencil tips of light meet. And breathe. Just gently let your breath open as you focus there. And then whoever it is that you're going to release attachment to, you're addressing Ruka, you're asking for support here, and just verbally speak out loud. Ruka, I release all attachment to, and fill in the blank with the name that you're going to use. In your case, that would be Ruka, I release all attachments, Diane. And breathe. And notice what's happening in your body. For many people, there will be some tingling in the hands, the arms, and oftentimes the tingling in the head, the brain. So just breathe and be with the shift that takes place. And the show is about to cut us off, so Doug, maybe we can just share what unfolds in the next minute or two, in 10 or 20 or 30, and let us know tomorrow what happens. In the meantime, everybody, have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give